Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BetSperts. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and joining me always up in the great north, and I think he might even be going skiing if the weather's nice this weekend. How's it going, Andy?
Yeah, looking at maybe some more snow this weekend, but not enough to bother me. Just another nice little dusting up here in the Great Wild North as we work our way towards spring. It gets to be
Is
depressing.
it wild or
It
white?
is
I said it was
a
white.
little bit of both. It is Bell Let's Talk
Mm.
Day, as I was just about to mention how depressing this time of year is. We go like weeks where the sun just doesn't come out. It's just cloudy. It's not snowing, but it's just cloudy. And that's where that seasonal depression comes from for people up here. My wife has one of those special lights to keep her off the ledge. But
That's good.
it's been a warm winter, which is nice. It keeps people from going nuts up here, especially after we were cooped up even during the summer for the most part. But
It's always
another
good to
good
see the
day.
sun.
Another good day. How about that Towson Steam? My number got beat up against me yesterday, and my team won by a lot anyway. So that's always fun, especially an afternoon game. Only one game yesterday. I only have one so far today. I'm looking at a couple more, but if I add anything, of course, I will add it to the BetSperts app. I didn't even add mine for today. I'm going to do that while you start. Not a big slate of basketball today, but Noops has some ideas on how to attack the NBA slate today. Why don't you hit that?
So we got 4 games tonight. Tuesday and Thursday nights are obviously smaller slate, more marquee games, which can generally be kind of fun. I mean, I think Golden State and Phoenix will be a fun game. Portland and Houston can be a fun game, but it's a really tough from a betting perspective when there's so few games. The market tends to be pretty sharp. I mean, even some of the openers here were pretty good. And then you start to look at the injury report. So we'll start with Portland, Houston here. Portland is still out, still missing Robert Covington. Looks like Christian Wood hopefully is going to play tonight. If he does, I like the Houston Rockets here, but the number is drifted out to 4.5. Might look at a team total there. Clippers in Miami is just kind of an injury wasteland at this point. We know Kawhi's out. We know Paul George is out. It looks like Patrick Beverley is out. And then for the Heat, questionable is Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Goran Dragic, and Myers Leonard. So at any moment, those guys could be listed in. They could be listed out. Unless you know something that no one else knows, I don't think that you should be playing this number. If all those guys are announced in for Miami, I mean, you'll get a nice price in the Clippers. That might be an interesting underdog at a big number. And I'll probably look at it under there once the total moves, but just too much unknown to really attack it at this point. Lakers, Detroit, that number looks good to me. 9.5. The total's 215. Maybe I'll get a little low there, but we'll see. I wonder if on the back-to-back, LeBron maybe gets his first rest game tonight. Again, just too much stuff to really take into account here. And then Phoenix, Golden State. Golden State opened a 1-point favorite. A lot of money coming in on Phoenix here, which is interesting. They're now out to 2.5. So, 4 pretty solid full game numbers, which happens. These are efficient markets, people. But what do we do, Andy, when the more efficient markets aren't fun to bet in?
We find a niche. We find a derivative. We find a prop. We find something else.
So I did get a chance to talk about this when I missed the show the other day, but one of my favorite ways to bet the NBA is to look at quarters. I think that first half lines are starting to become more efficient. I know a lot of people bet into those. What I found over the last couple of years, specifically looking at first quarters, the last 2 years, then this year, starting looking at the third quarter, there seems to be some value in the market on that. As I start to look at some statistics, as I start to run kind of my full game model, but from a quarter perspective and hone in on a few other particular things, I see some real value. Some of these underdog teams, it looks like basically these lines are set kind of derivative of the full game line, derivative of the first half line. And when you start to look at first quarters and third quarters especially, there's a lot of different lineup changes that happen specifically. You kind of have these pre-mapped lineups that are going to come out. So I think you have a little more consistency there, and you have an opportunity to take advantage of maybe some interesting things that, starters resting early in the first quarter and things like that. So, as you start to look at some of those markets again, try to think through it. It's an interesting derivative market. And first quarter tonight, everything looks pretty tight to me, but I do have a play in the third quarter. The Detroit Pistons have been a great third quarter team this year. So tonight, I actually have them. Let me just double check. A small favorite here against the Lakers in the third quarter. They're favored by 0.1 points. Look, basically a pick 'em for me. Happy to grab them plus 2.5 points and plus 50 on the money line. Basically, what I do is split a unit on each here. I find there's value in both, but like to get the points as well as the money line. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's nice if you double dip. Like you're free rolling on the money line if you can keep it close. And in 12 minutes of basketball, 2.5 is actually quite a bit. So it always feels like a small number when you're doing these. And somebody's asking you in the chat right now, what was the
Yep.
NBA site you were talking about last week, what you use?
A lot of my data actually just comes from NBA.com. They have a really robust statistical tab, and I go through and pull down. They have these box scores that you can basically pull in that are really great. If you're interested in backing out garbage time data, there's a website called Cleaning the Glass. I believe that's a subscription service, but it's not too expensive. And towards the end of the season, frankly, what I do is I go in and sign up for that towards the end of the year. I love looking at that stuff in the playoffs. I actually think regular season handicapping, you have to consider garbage time because it's a big part of what actually happens over the NBA regular season. Once you get to the playoffs, it's really nice to go in and have someone do the work to, quote, take out those junk time minutes, kind of at the end of blowout games. It gives you maybe a truer indication of how good some of the teams are. So Cleaning the Glass is really good as well. But those are, mostly the two websites that I use.
I dig it. Yeah, and that's something too. It seems like every year I'm finding more websites and Chrome. Something I was talking to Drew about Chrome add-ons. Like more and more developers, just part-time developers, guys who enjoy doing what we do, and tracking data in sports, are making these Chrome add-ons to change. Like I have one that changes how the box score looks on ESPN. Drew was showing me one he uses for the NBA that adds a bunch of live stuff. If you don't have that, I'll show you that after. And if anybody wants to know about those, just go look in the Chrome store for NBA add-ons or college basketball add-ons. There's a ton of stuff that you can give you nice live data if you're looking for that.
Yeah, all that stuff is really good. Just keep looking around, and these are always good questions to ask. DM people. You can DM myself. You can DM Andy. Obviously, just the show at Brown Bag Bets. People are willing to share stuff like this. There's just a ton of information out there. But yeah, again, a lot of my stuff, start with NBA.com. They have a really robust website. You can do player on-off stuff. You can pull down things. There's a lot of great filters you can use and stuff. So that they actually do about as nice of a job as anybody.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at how much they have for, just like advanced data right on their website. It's nice that the league knows people want that and they're adopting that. So
what amazing idea, Andy. Allow people to have access to your sport and all the stuff that's involved.
And then somebody asks, where do you bet the quarter bets? Where are those available?
Yeah, a handful of websites have them. First quarters are just about everywhere at this point. Third quarters, you can look at Bet Any Sports. You can look at Bookmaker. If you're in legal states, DraftKings has them. FanDuel has them. So yeah, look around. First quarters are just about everywhere. Not every, but third quarters are a little tougher to find, but you should be able to get them. Personally, again, I use FanDuel, DraftKings, Bookmaker, and Bet Any Sports when I'm doing that.
Sure. Yeah. And sometimes you do have to do a little poking around into the sub menus to find the derivative market. Not everybody puts them in an easily, found area for some reason. So get to know your books. If you get bored sometime, just poke around. Little kids ball. I just put this in the app. I told you I forgot to put it in. I bet it this morning. It's still available some places. 9's fine. There's still 9s out there. 9.5 is even better, but don't go paying like -124. Don't ever sell point or don't ever buy points in college basketball. You don't want to pay extra juice. I'm always looking for outs where I can go less and pay like -102, -105, stuff like that. It's tough in some of the off the screen markets because you're going to pay -110 no matter what. But there is, if you're not betting a ton on these, you can find some pretty cheap prices at some of the lower VIG options. Sacramento State in the Big Sky. They're not great, but they are the number 2 defense in the Big Sky right now, right behind the number one offense. Right behind the number 1 offense, they're the number 2 offense. The 2 best offenses will be clashing tonight. I'm probably still not looking at an over. It's probably set where it needs to be, but Eastern Washington isn't as good as they make out to be. They have a really fast tempo. Their average possession length is number 1 in the conference. I have done some work with the clashing style thing as far as a really fast team, a fast tempo team facing a really slow tempo team. Fast tempo team against another fast tempo team is usually good for them. Fast tempo team versus slow tempo team can disrupt how they want to play. Not only that, I have just a couple more metrics that make Sacramento State a lot closer than a 9-point dog. They're great at forcing turnovers. They're great at they're one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the conference right now. So a few things that if underdogs can do a few things, like there's a bunch of things, there's almost a dozen, but if there's a couple of these things that they can do well, they're going to be able to keep it close when you're betting these underdogs. If they're a good 3-point shooting team, that helps catching up or keeping close. If they're able to force turnovers, if they're really good on the offensive glass, just ways to create extra possessions when you're a team that's 3-possession underdog. So they do a few things that I like, and that's the only one I have right now. I might add some later. If I do, like I said, I will put it in on the app. Somebody says under in Gonzaga worth a look. Man, I don't know if I ever want to get involved in unders with Gonzaga. You just never know what you're going to get from. I don't know what I'm going to get from the other team. Like, I know what I'm going to get from Gonzaga. They're the best team in the country right now. Maybe one of the best teams I've ever seen, especially on the defensive end. But, I have seen them play defense. I've seen them kind of shut down Iowa for parts of the first half when they played. I've seen them do a really good job on Auburn. I've seen them do a great job against Virginia. Those are high-end teams. And now we're going into this conference schedule where they're playing Pepperdine and Santa Clara, and St. Mary's is good. San Fran's good. BYU is great, but some of these middle of the pack, San Diego, I believe, is the game tonight. I don't know what I'm going to get from them. San Diego could put up 50. San Diego, if they get into garbage time earlier, San Diego could end up with 75 and still lose by 20. So I'm sketched out by these Gonzaga totals for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough betting under in any basketball game, let alone when they're playing in.
Oh, what does that leave us with? Just tennis?
A little bit of tennis for me. I know that you've got a bunch of golf. We'll hold off till the end there for that. Tennis, I'm going to start with a parlay we've got here again. We'll put together a couple money lines. Unfortunately, Greek Sport let us down. It was probably helped his opponent that he had 3 or 4 days to wait until playing that match. But today we're going to go with 2 women here, Arco Nada and Talaba. Arco Nada is playing, I believe, in about 45 minutes. This starts a little bit after the show here, so try to get that in sooner rather than later. If you don't get that in, Talaba and Nakashima by itself is a perfectly fine parlay. That'll be a little juicier, but I like all 3 of these put together. Arco Nada and Talaba, pretty big favorites here, just against opponents that are just entirely overmatched here. Either much younger or just way outclassed here in terms of the opponents that they're used to playing. They are playing in Rome, Georgia. So, we'll get a chance to watch it. I think there's actually a feed on the ITF website there for them. And then Brandon Nakashima, that will be overnight in Quimper, France. Again, had a really nice week here. Someone that has just about all the skills you would want from a young tennis player, and seems to have his head on straight so far this week. So like him in this match, and I think even if he has a little mental trouble, should have more than enough talent to get things done here. So we'll put all 3 of these together. What do you think of those?
Yeah, Nakashima's playing great, and great is always relative. It's so funny when you see some of these guys playing so well, and then you get them next week to like a legitimate tournament, like they were playing in a challenger. It's like the quad A baseball player. Like, man, he's hitting the piss out of the ball down there. And then you get him up and he sees major league change-ups, and all of a sudden he strikes out, 4 times in the first game. So, but Nakashima, he's a guy who can translate to the ATP. I think he'll be good in years to come. I like him.
Yeah, he will. I do have one more pick, actually. There is an exhibition tournament going on in Australia. This will actually probably be on TV late tonight, East Coast time. I'm trying to see when this actually is. Yeah, it looks like it'll be over late night East Coast time. Naomi Osaka is playing Serena Williams, and they're going to let us bet on this for some reason. Serena Williams generally does not play very well at exhibition matches. Naomi Osaka is someone that is actually, takes all this stuff pretty seriously. Honestly, if they were playing head-to-head in a very serious match like a final, I would love Osaka at this price. She is probably the best women's tennis player on planet Earth, especially on hard courts right now. So happy to grab her at minus 140. Would play this out to minus 150. There's some different numbers out there, but minus 140 anything is pretty good. Minus 150 is okay too. Nothing deeper than that.
Gotcha. And then, I did promise some golf. It is 10:45 Central right now. The first tee-offs for the Farmers Insurance Open are at 11. I don't know exactly when all these guys go, but I know some of them may go soon. This is what I played in the first round. This is something I did post up on my Twitter already. but just some plays. And, it's something I talked about yesterday. I always do sell strokes if I can help it. I've looked at it. I haven't run the entirety, and I hope to later this season run the entirety of how many games or how many matchups actually tie, because then you can get a push probability. It's not like basketball where I can just run to one of these calculators and say what's a 7.5 worth compared to a 7 with the push probability. It's like, it's really hard because it's not the same thing. You have a massive quantity of matchups between a bunch of different men at a bunch of different tournaments in a bunch of different conditions. So I'm hoping to look at it and actually find out, am I getting screwed over by selling these strokes, by playing the halves? I don't think I am, just based on my small sample size. But so basically, like, if you want to play Burns over Spieth, it's minus 130 or something, and I'm going to play Burns over Spieth without the safety net, without taking the push. Like, if they tie, right, I lose. I need to win by a half stroke. So rather, like soccer, it's the 3-way compared to the 2-way, or hockey rather, too. So I will always play these minus halves if they let me. When my guy's an underdog, they hang the plus half. And that, I've had that question too. Do you ever do that where you win on a tie? And again, I think that's so akin to buying points that I feel like no matter what, you're going to be overcharged for what it's worth. And that's why I truly do believe, just they're overcharging you enough where coming back the other way is probably undervalued a little. So you can see these Burns over Spieth, Eric Van Rooyen over Hadwin. Hadwin's a guy I'm ready to fade right now. He played okay last at the American Express. But outside of that, his approach game has been pretty bad for basically the whole second half of the year, it looks like. Homa is somebody who is very low. And somebody just asked, these are round ones. And this is just for round one. I do have some full tournament stuff as well. I don't know if any of those numbers are there. So they could have been steamed the other way for all I know. I haven't updated and checked. Somebody asked how I've done in golf so far this year. Undefeated. Haven't lost a play. And that's because I've played like 3 head-to-heads, and they've been spoon-fed to me early in the week by sharp players who know what they're doing and have just said, like, here's a number that's probably wrong. And I've been lucky that a couple golfers played well. So nothing I've done is wrong so far. I haven't made any of my golf numbers yet. These are the first ones of the year. So Connors over Homa, Max Homa. I'm actually fading him twice. Somebody asked me this morning in a DM where I found a price. If you do start to get into golf head-to-heads, you're going to find that there's 2 different sets of head-to-head lines where certain books will have certain books will have different guys matched up. In fact, sometimes there's a weird third set in the legal markets, which I've run into. So if you ever want, I should put these just in my spreadsheet so I can tag them which books I'm placing them at, so people stop asking me where I found them. But like, oftentimes there'll only be one matchup against a guy on your book, and you can see where I played Connors and Palmer over Max here. Those are at 2 different books. Like, I made him bad enough where I want to play him basically anywhere I can right now. So, and then Harold Varner the third over Benny Ann as my underdog. That is a straight up money line. If that pushes, I will just take a push on that. I'm not laying a stroke because I would. They won't let me. Somebody in the chat says tie percentage usually around 4.5%. Yeah, I'd like to know, and it's less on the ones I play. So I'd like to think I'm finding ones where I have actual edges, or I'm finding ones with higher variance, which would be better either way, because if my guys lose, I'd like them to lose by 6 strokes, not lose by the tie. And then somebody asked what tournament Osaka plays in. It is an exhibition. Look under exhibitions. I'm not sure where you're going to find that. It might not be up until later on. We'll have to, maybe we'll make a list of all the places you can find that.
I'll try to keep looking around. There's a couple places. I put one in the chat there. Bet Any Sports has it. But I like what you're saying in terms of selling strokes. I mean, we see this in every sport. Our buddy Drew, you might know him better as Whale, folks, has done extensive work to prove over and over and over again that you should just sell points in the NBA just every time. I assume, a lot of our college basketball friends like to do the same thing. And it applies to just about any other sport. In the NFL, you see value there. In golf, you guys continue to see value there. It's because people do want to buy the point. People are willing to overpay for that security. It's one of our inherent biases. I forget which kind of bias that is, Andy. Maybe you do remember.
What, buying points?
Yeah, the overpaying for safety.
Yeah, loss aversion. Like people are more willing to pay that half point because a loss feels twice as bad as a win feels good. So even a push feels just amazing to somebody if they sell points or buy points. So don't buy points. Like never ever buy points. If you need guidance on that, we have some pretty good articles I can find you to show just like long term it's not going to be a winner. Like paying minus 130 on a bet is not going to be a long-term winner when you're doing anything. So, if you have any other golf questions, ask somebody else because right now I'm still getting my feet wet. Somebody is asking if I bet the same unit size on round one versus tournament. I don't. I never have. I think these are smaller samples because they're only playing 18 holes compared to 36, sometimes 54 or 72 if it comes down to both guys making the cut. So I will play these for half the amount that I play the full tournament stuff as a rule, and I haven't deviated from that ever. So that's how I approach these, just because they hit at a lower. I think they do hit at a slightly lower rate for the past 2 years than full tournament stuff, but I am still dialing that in. So maybe someday we'll play them for the same amount because there are some nice edges I find here. Otherwise, Sacramento State, if you missed it earlier, it's in on BetSperts. I am playing that at 9.5. There's some 9s out there. I'd play it down to 9. I'm fine with that. I went over it. I mean, I make them like 5.5, 6 point dogs here. Like it's a full possession off in my mind. But again, my stuff is usually pretty far off on some of these plays. Going for a bunch in a row. I don't remember what the streak's at, but it's always fun to have a streak. Happens like once a year, and I gotta stay in the moment and just enjoy it. Alex,
knocking on wood for you.
Yeah, Detroit third quarter handicap and money line, and Osaka in a exhibition, and Erkanada, Tabalala, and Nakashima. Talaba. Easy.
Those people.
Easy. Yeah, those guys. Those three in there. Just pause it, write them down, and put them in if you want to play that parlay. And then, as always, I mentioned this last night in the deep dive. We're doing a bonus deep dive tonight just because halfway through it, we realized it was going to be like, this is going to be 3 hours. We got to split this up. But if you're in Michigan or somewhere Michigan adjacent, WynnBET is now live in Michigan. Sweatshirts are back on the table. You can get yourself a sweatshirt. All you have to do is sign up using the links in the YouTube or in the description of the podcast. There's a link for the Michigan sign up. And you know what? If you're Jersey or Colorado or close to, we're still going to let you get a sweatshirt just because it's not fair. So sweatshirts for everybody if you sign up and send us a bet slip. So links in the description. And as always, thanks a lot, guys. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Have a great day.
Just going to leave this up for a little bit. Again, I charge them by the minute for how long I keep these ads up. That's not true, but sign up.